At first, investigators believed it was a hostage situation that could still be contained. A mother had entered a local bank shortly after opening hours and calmly informed employees that her family was being held inside their home. Police were notified immediately, but by the time officers surrounded the property in Cheshire, Connecticut, the situation inside had already deteriorated beyond recovery. Within hours, a suburban family home would be set on fire. 3 members of the Petit family would be dead, and the case would become one of the most disturbing home invasion murders in modern American history. In 2007, the Petit family was well known throughout Cheshire, Connecticut. Dr. William Petit Jr. was an endocrinologist and medical director at the Hospital of Central Connecticut. His wife, Jennifer Petit, worked as a nurse and school health administrator. Their daughters, Haley and Michaela, were described by friends and teachers as intelligent, athletic, and deeply involved in school and community activities. 2 neighbors. The family appeared stable, successful, and ordinary, which made what happened on July 23rd even harder to comprehend. Investigators later determined that the Petit family may have been selected hours before the attack even began. According to court testimony, Joshua Komisarjevsky and Stephen Hayes encountered Jennifer Petit and her youngest daughter Michaela at a grocery store on the afternoon of July 22nd. The 2 men followed them home. At the time, both had extensive criminal histories involving burglary, drug addiction, and prior convictions. Prosecutors argued that the original plan was robbery, but over the next several hours, the crime escalated far beyond theft. Sometime after midnight, the 2 men entered the Petit home through the rear door. Inside, William Petit was asleep downstairs in the sunroom. He was attacked almost immediately. Investigators later said Komisarjevsky struck him repeatedly in the head using a baseball bat found outside the property. Believing he might already be dying, the intruders restrained him and moved him into the basement. The rest of the family was then tied up separately inside the house. Jennifer Petit and her daughters were confined to bedrooms upstairs, while the intruders searched the property for money and valuables. But the robbery quickly changed direction. The men reportedly discovered financial records showing access to a substantial line of credit, and suddenly, the invasion became prolonged. The following morning, Jennifer Petit was forced into the family vehicle and taken to a local Bank of America branch. Security cameras captured the trip. Inside the bank, she attempted to remain calm. According to testimony, Jennifer quietly informed bank employees that her family was being held hostage inside their home. She withdrew approximately $15,000. The bank manager immediately contacted police. At that point, authorities understood they were dealing with an active hostage situation involving multiple victims, but critical minutes were already passing. While Jennifer was at the bank, events inside the Petit home became increasingly violent. Court testimony later revealed that both daughters remained restrained upstairs. Investigators discovered evidence that disturbing photographs had been taken inside the house using one of the attacker's cell phones. Digital forensic analysts later recovered time-stamped images from Joshua Komisarjevsky's device. Some of those photographs were reportedly taken while the hostage situation was still unfolding. Meanwhile, William Petit, despite severe head injuries, managed to loosen his restraints in the basement. Disoriented and bleeding heavily, he eventually escaped the house through a basement door and attempted to seek help from neighbors. But by then, investigators say the perpetrators realized the situation was collapsing. According to prosecutors, Stephen Hayes had earlier stopped at a gas station and purchased gasoline. Those containers were later brought into the Petit residence. As police began positioning around the neighborhood, the situation inside escalated again. Jennifer Petit was murdered. Medical examiners later concluded she died from strangulation before the fire began. Haley and Michaela Petit were left restrained upstairs. Gasoline was poured throughout portions of the house. Then the home was set on fire. Investigators later determined that both girls died from smoke inhalation as the fire rapidly consumed the second floor. One detail deeply affected both investigators and firefighters. Evidence suggested Haley Petit had managed to free herself from part of her restraints and attempted to escape before collapsing near the top of the staircase. As flames engulfed the house, Hayes and Komisarjevsky fled using the Petit family vehicle, but police units had already begun surrounding the area. According to witness accounts, the suspects attempted to ram through police barricades at high speed before crashing nearby. Both men were taken into custody shortly afterward. The crime scene investigators encountered inside the home would later become one of the most heavily discussed murder scenes in Connecticut history. The investigation immediately drew national attention, not only because of the brutality of the crimes, but because of the timeline itself. One of the major controversies surrounding the case involved police response. Questions emerged regarding whether officers could have intervened sooner after the bank employee contacted authorities. Reports later suggested police had established perimeter positions outside the home while the family was still alive inside. Former officers and legal analysts debated whether tactical hesitation cost critical time. The discussion became one of the most emotionally charged aspects of the entire case. Meanwhile, prosecutors built their case using digital evidence, forensic analysis, surveillance footage, phone records, witness testimony, and the defendant's own statements. Recovered text messages between Hayes and Komisarjevsky showed conversations hours before the attack. One message read, "I'm chomping at the bit to get started." Another simply asked, "We still on?" The language disturbed investigators because it suggested planning rather than impulsive behavior. The trials of Stephen Hayes and Joshua Komisarjevsky received intense media coverage throughout Connecticut. Jurors were shown extensive forensic evidence and testimony detailing the hours inside the Petit home. The emotional impact became so severe that Connecticut's judicial system later offered psychological counseling resources to jurors involved in the case. Both defendants were ultimately convicted on multiple counts, including murder, kidnapping, sexual assault, arson, and burglary. Initially, both received death sentences. But in 2012, Connecticut abolished the death penalty for future cases. Their sentences were later converted to life imprisonment without parole. The Petit home was eventually demolished, but even years later, the Cheshire Home Invasion Murders continued to leave a lasting psychological impact across Connecticut, not simply because of the violence itself, but because of how ordinary everything appeared before it happened. A quiet neighborhood, a family returning home from grocery shopping, a summer night inside a suburban house, and then, over the course of several hours, an ordinary home became the center of one of the most disturbing criminal cases in modern American history. For many investigators, the most haunting part of the case was not how it ended. It was how long the family remained trapped inside while help struggled to reach them.